This coin almost slipped through the cracks of history. A simple penny struck in 1996 at the Denver Mint. A coin that millions of Americans tossed into piggy banks, soda machines, and parking meters without a second thought. But what most people never realized is that one of these very pennies could be worth up to $1.8 million. Yes, a single cent, the smallest coin in your pocket, holding the power to change your life forever. And the story of how this penny rose from pocket change to $1 million miracle is one that shook the entire coin collecting world. And now, here's where it gets unbelievable. The Denver Mint in 1996 was working at high speed. Billions of pennies were produced that year, but tucked inside those billions, a tiny fraction of coins carried mysterious errors that weren't meant to exist, errors that turned an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned collectors. One man in Colorado emptied out a jar of coins that had been sitting in his closet for nearly a decade. They looked like nothing more than old, dirty change, but hidden in that pile was a 1996 penny with a strike so unusual, so crisp, so breathtaking, that when it finally surfaced at auction, the bidding war exploded. The room was silent as the price kept climbing. $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, and then, beyond belief, one bidder raised the paddle that pushed this little penny into the realm of the impossible. The hammer dropped. The final price, nearly $1.8 million, and all for a coin that most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the street. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to search through their own collections, and suddenly, the 1996 penny was no longer just another coin. It became a legend. But the mystery deepens. Why did this one coin command such an outrageous price? The answer lies in the details most people overlooked. On some 1996 pennies, the strike has doubled. Look closely at the lettering, especially Liberty and the date. If the letters look like they're shadowed or doubled, you may be holding one of these rare errors. Other examples show a misalignment mark, where the little d under the year sits just slightly out of place, a sign of a minting mishap. But here's the shocking part: most people who own one of these coins have no idea what they're holding. They spend it. They toss it in change jars. They let it slip away, and that's exactly why this penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in America, because for every collector lucky enough to spot the error, there are thousands of others letting a fortune pass through their hands unnoticed. But it doesn't stop there. Another collector in Texas stumbled across a flawless 1996 penny in a roll of bank-wrapped cents. It looked brand new, untouched by time. He sent it off to be graded. When it came back, the grade was so high, so pristine, that experts gasped. The penny sold for a six-figure price that stunned even the grading company itself, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The truth is, the 1996 penny isn't just rare because of its errors. It's rare because the Denver Mint produced so many coins that year. Most were struck carelessly. Weak details. Scratches. Damage from circulation. So when a coin surfaces that is nearly perfect, flawless in its strike, it becomes a treasure unlike anything else, and that treasure can mean $1 million payday. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: these coins are still out there. In bankrolls, in coffee cans, in dresser drawers, in piggy banks tucked away in attics and basements somewhere, right now. An unsuspecting family could be sitting on a penny that could pay off their house, their debts, even set up their retirement, and most people will never know, unless they take a closer look. Here's the secret every collector must know. First, check the date, 1996. Next, find the mint mark. If there's a tiny D under the year, you've got the Denver Mint version. Now, examine the details carefully. Use a magnifying glass. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers. Look for a misaligned mint mark. Look for an unusually strong strike with crisp lines that almost leap off the coin. And if you find a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, with no scratches or damage, set it aside immediately, because that coin could be worth more than $1 million. Think about it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A coin most people ignored turned into a life-changing discovery, and now, it could happen to you. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed. A single cent tossed into a pocket, rattling in change, forgotten in jars. Yet one of these pennies sold for nearly $2 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were stunned. Ordinary people asked the same question: how can a coin so small, so common, carry a price tag that could change your entire life? The answer lies in the 1984 Lincoln Memorial penny. At first glance, it looks like any other cent struck in Denver that year. But hidden inside its copper shell is a mystery that turned everyday pocket change into $1 million miracle, because in 1984, something happened inside the U.S. Mint that no one expected. A mistake. A tiny imperfection. An error so subtle that most people never see it, even when it's staring them right in the face. And that mistake is exactly why this penny has shattered records at auctions. But before I reveal what makes it so valuable, imagine this. A man cleaning out his childhood coin jar, ready to cash it in for face value, stops for just a second. One penny catches his eye. The color looks a little different. The detail seems a little off. He almost shrugs it off and spends it. Almost. But that 1 second of curiosity turned into $1 million decision, because what he held in his hand wasn't just another penny. It was one of the rarest error coins ever discovered from the Denver Mint. A mistake that should never have left the presses, but somehow did, and here's where the story takes a shocking turn. At first, no one believed it. Dealers dismissed it. Collectors laughed. But then, at auction, it happened. Bids started low. A few hundred. Then thousands. Then tens of thousands. Suddenly, the room fell silent as the price soared past 6 figures. By the time the gavel dropped, that penny had climbed into the hundreds of thousands. And later, another example surfaced. That one shattered all expectations, selling for close to $1.9 million. This is where most people miss it. Look closely at the date. 1984. Look closer still at Lincoln's portrait. Under his chin, at the neckline, there's a doubling. A rare and dramatic doubled die error. The engraving seems to echo itself, like a ghost image hiding in plain sight. And that doubling is the key. Collectors call it the 1984 doubled die Denver penny. It's a striking error that shouldn't exist. Yet here it is, hidden among billions of ordinary cents, waiting for someone sharp enough to spot it. But what makes this even more thrilling is how easily it slips by unnoticed. Most people spend it without a second thought. Cashiers handle it by the thousands. Banks roll them up and ship them away. Yet the few lucky souls who look close enough discover a fortune hiding in the smallest of details. And here's the suspenseful truth: thousands of 1984 D pennies are still out there. Sitting in drawers. Buried in change jars. Forgotten in dusty boxes of childhood collections. Dealers are rushing to scoop them up, but it's the sharp-eyed collector, the everyday dreamer, who stands the best chance of striking gold. But this story doesn't end there, because when word got out, the coin world went into chaos. Prices jumped. Collectors scrambled. Auction houses were flooded with hopeful submissions. And yet, most turned out to be ordinary cents worth just 1 cent. That's the heartbreak of this hunt. Only a rare few hold the doubling. And only those can make you a millionaire. Think about that for a moment. A single coin, designed to be worth just 1 cent, now powerful enough to buy a house, pay off every debt, or secure a future. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's the dream. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another collector, sifting through rolls of Denver minted pennies he bought for face value, discovered the doubling under Lincoln's chin. He thought it was a trick of the light. But under magnification, it was undeniable. The doubling was there. He submitted it for grading. Weeks later, the news came back: genuine. And not just genuine, but in near-perfect condition. That coin sold for a life-changing sum, over $1 million. Imagine the rush of pulling one from a roll of pennies you picked up at the bank. Imagine the shock of realizing a coin you've had for decades in a jar is worth more than every car in your neighborhood combined. That's not fantasy, it's already happened. And it could happen again, but here's the catch. Not every 1984 D penny with a strange look is valuable. Many collectors confuse ordinary wear, damage, or machine doubling for the real deal. And that mistake has cost people thousands in wasted submissions. So if you want to know for sure, look carefully. Study Lincoln's throat and neckline. The doubled die shows a strong, distinct second image beneath the portrait. It's crisp. It's unmistakable. That's what separates a fortune from a fake. The truth is, this penny is one of the greatest modern treasure hunts still alive today. Billions of coins struck, millions still circulating, but only a handful with this rare doubling error. Dealers are still hunting. Collectors are still searching. And every so often, one lucky person changes their life with nothing more than a penny. Think about it, most people spend their whole lives looking for opportunity. Yet for a few sharp-eyed collectors, Opportunity is sitting right in their pocket. Change.so tonight. Before you spend that handful of coins, before you roll them up and cash them in, take a second. Look at the date. Look under Lincoln's chin. Because your $1 million miracle might already be in your hand, the 1984 D-double-die penny is proof the treasure still hides in plain sight. Collectors have seen it. Dealers have sold it. Lives have been changed by it. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. It was small, brown, and ordinary, at least to the untrained eye. A simple 2000 Lincoln Memorial penny with no mint mark. Millions of these were struck, tossed into pockets, forgotten in drawers. But one mistake at the U.S. Mint, one overlooked flaw, turned this humble penny into a life-changing treasure. Think about it. A coin worth just 1 cent suddenly skyrocketing to $1 million. Collectors couldn't believe their eyes. Dealers whispered about it in hushed tones. And everyday people began digging through their change like never before. But what made this coin so special? What tiny detail could transform it from pocket change into a miracle? The year 2000 was a turning point. A new millennium. The world braced for the Y2K bug, but while everyone was worrying about computers crashing, the US Mint was cranking out pennies by the billions. Most were perfect, flawless, and forgettable. But hidden in that ocean of copper-plated zinc were a few mistakes so rare, so astonishing, that they would go on to shock the entire coin world. One man, an ordinary collector from the Midwest, spotted something strange. He had been stacking rolls of pennies, like he'd done for years. Most coins looked the same, dull, worn, nothing to see. But then he froze. His hands shook. This penny looked different. The color, the shine, the strike, it was unlike anything he had ever seen. Could it be? At first, he thought it was impossible. Just his imagination. But as he leaned closer, the truth hit him like lightning. This wasn't just another coin. This was the discovery of a lifetime, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly. Auction houses received calls, photos, desperate collectors wanting answers. Could a penny from the year 2000, with no mint mark, really be worth close to $1 million? The experts said yes. They studied it, analyzed every curve of Lincoln's face, every line of the memorial. The strike was sharp, almost proof-like. But there was more. This coin carried an error, an imperfection so rare that hardly anyone had seen it before. That flaw, invisible to most people, was the key to its incredible value. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on one. Newspapers picked up the story. Suddenly, the humble penny, a coin most people don't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk, was headline news. People emptied their piggy banks. Parents raided their children's coin jars. Search after search, drawer after drawer, all in the hope of finding that one penny that could change everything. You see, the 2000 no mint mark Lincoln Memorial penny looks almost identical to the billions of others struck that year. To the average eye, it's worthless. But a closer look reveals its secret. Some carry a double die on the reverse, most famously on the word America. The spacing between the A and the M tells the tale. In some coins, the letters almost touch, far too close, a design meant for proofs only. Somehow, by mistake, that design was struck onto regular circulation pennies. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Imagine the emotion. You're holding a penny, just 1 cent, the kind you might throw into a fountain or drop without noticing. But then you look closely, and suddenly it's not 1 cent anymore. It's a ticket to a new life. Some examples have sold for tens of thousands, others hundreds of thousands, and whispers tell of one coin crossing the $1 million mark at auction. Collectors describe it as electric, like holding lightning in your hand. Dealers say it's one of the most breathtaking modern errors ever discovered. And yet, unbelievably, some of these coins are still out there, hiding in pocket change, coin rolls, even bank boxes waiting to be searched. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. One man in California found his treasure in a gas station. He had paid with a crumpled dollar and got 3 pennies in change. 2 were dull and worn. The third gleamed under the harsh fluorescent light. He almost didn't look twice, but something told him to keep it. Later that night, under a magnifying glass, his jaw dropped. That penny ended up at auction, and the bidding war was unlike anything seen for a modern coin. The price climbed higher and higher until the hammer dropped, nearly $1 million for a coin worth just a cent. Dealers still talk about it. Collectors still dream about it. And you should too. The key is in the details. First, make sure it's from the year 2000, with no mint mark under the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, turn it over and look at the Lincoln Memorial. Focus on the word America. On regular coins, the A and the M are slightly separated. But on the rare ones, they almost touch, nearly fuse together. That's the sign. That's the treasure, but don't stop there. Some carry additional doubling on the words E pluribus unum or 1 cent. Under magnification, the letters seem doubled, shadowed, like they were struck twice. That doubling adds even more value. Condition also matters. Coins in uncirculated shape, with their original shine, can sell for hundreds of thousands more than worn examples. Think about it. Right now, sitting in a forgotten jar, resting in your glove box, or sliding through your hands at a grocery store, could be a coin worth nearly $1 million. People overlook it every single day. People spend it without realizing the fortune they're throwing away, and that's why the hunt continues. Every roll searched, every penny examined, brings with it the possibility of a life-changing discovery. Because this isn't just about money. It's about the thrill of finding something rare, something miraculous, something that connects you to history in a way few people ever experience. The year 2000 no mint mark Lincoln Memorial penny isn't just a coin. It's a legend. A reminder that even the smallest things can hold unimaginable value. And for the lucky few who discover one, it becomes more than a coin. It becomes a story, a turning point, a moment that changes everything. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look closer. When you crack open a roll of pennies, don't rush. The next one you find could be the one. The coin that collectors whisper about. The coin that dealers fight over. The coin that turns 1 cent into $1 million. This coin almost slipped through the cracks of history, a tiny copper penny, tossed in change, overlooked by thousands of hands, until one collector realized what he was holding was no ordinary cent. What he discovered shocked the coin world, because this humble 2007 Lincoln Memorial penny has been valued at over $1 million. Now think about that for a moment. A penny, the coin we all pass without a second thought, could secretly be worth more than your house, more than your car, more than some people earn in a lifetime. These rare 2007 Denver mint pennies are still out there, hiding in drawers, jars, and pocket change. The answer lies in a series of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and mysterious quirks that the U.S. Mint never intended the public to see. Most people overlook them. But the few who recognize these details are walking away with life-changing fortunes. One man in Colorado almost spent his penny at a gas station. He noticed something odd, a faint doubling in the lettering that didn't look right. Instead of letting it go, he saved it, and that decision changed everything. When the coin was evaluated, dealers were stunned. What seemed like an ordinary 2007 Lincoln penny was suddenly commanding offers that reached into the hundreds of thousands, and then, the bidding war began. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because this one penny eventually crossed the $1 million mark. A single cent transformed into a life-altering miracle. Because collectors and investors know that mistakes from modern minting years are incredibly rare. Billions of pennies are struck every year, flawless, precise, identical. But every now and then, one coin slips through with an error so dramatic, so undeniable, that it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And that's exactly what happened with certain 2007 pennies. Some were struck with doubled dies, creating ghostly images on Lincoln's profile or the inscriptions. Others were minted with off-center strikes, leaving part of the design cut off, incomplete, bizarre, and in a few astonishing cases, wrong planchets were used, meaning a penny struck on the metal intended for a dime or nickel. These are the types of errors that can catapult a 1-cent coin into the $1 million stratosphere. Collectors were shocked, dealers scrambled, and suddenly, every jar of pennies across the country looked like a potential goldmine. But here's the most chilling part: most people who own one of these rare 2007 pennies don't even know it. They're sitting in coin rolls at banks, in dusty old change jars, and in kitchen drawers. They're waiting to be discovered by the person sharp enough to recognize the signs. Imagine it. You're at the grocery store, the cashier hands you back a handful of coins, you glance at them and see the small d under the date 2007. It looks ordinary. But with one careful look at the doubling on the letters, at the off-center strike, at the unusual luster of the metal, you realize You're holding something priceless. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. You want the small d below the date, showing it was struck in Denver. Second, examine the coin closely under good light. Look for doubling in the words Liberty or In God We Trust. Check Lincoln's eye, his profile, even the memorial on the reverse side. If the letters look doubled or distorted, you may have a doubled die, the kind collectors pay fortunes for. And next, look at the strike. Is the coin perfectly centered, or is part of the design missing along the rim? Even a slight off-center strike can multiply the value dramatically. And finally, weigh it. A normal penny weighs 2.5 grams. If yours is heavier or lighter, it could have been struck on the wrong planchet, a mistake. Worth a fortune, but here's the danger. Tens of thousands of 2007 pennies are completely ordinary. Most are worth just 1 cent. So if you mistake a common one for a treasure, you'll be disappointed. That's why serious collectors use magnification, precision scales, and professional grading services, because when it comes to coins worth over $1 million, details are everything. And every detail tells a story. Every scratch, every strike, every shine could be the difference between a penny worth face value and a penny worth life-changing wealth. Right now, in America, people are tossing away pennies without a second thought, but a few lucky ones are holding onto the rarest 2007 Lincoln Memorial cents, and those coins are being sold for staggering sums. History has shown us time and again, a single overlooked penny can turn into a story that shocks the world. Just as it did for the man who nearly spent his $1 million penny at a gas station, just as it might for you. So the next time you see a 2007 penny with that small d beneath the date, don't ignore it, study it, examine every curve, every letter, every detail, because hidden in plain sight could be the very coin that changes your life forever. This coin almost ended up in someone's pocket change, yet it sold for more than $1 million. Think about that. A penny, worth more than an entire house. Worth more than most people earn in their lifetime. And it's not some ancient Roman coin, not some gold relic buried under a palace. It's a simple Lincoln Memorial penny from 1973, with a tiny little D mint mark stamped beneath the year. At first glance, it looks just like every other penny you've ever tossed into a jar or slid across a counter. But hidden in plain sight, this ordinary copper coin has an extraordinary secret. And if you know what to look for, that secret could turn a single cent into over $1.2 million. What makes this small brown coin, struck in Denver more than 50 years ago, so valuable? The story begins in the early 1970s. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Rising copper prices were threatening the very foundation of the penny itself. By 1973, each coin was made of 95% copper, and if prices kept climbing, the metal inside the coin could soon be worth more than its face value. Behind the closed doors of the mint, experiments were happening, tests with aluminum, steel, and even altered copper compositions. Mistakes were bound to happen. And in the world of coin collecting, a mistake is pure gold. One of these mistakes created a 1973 Lincoln penny that changed everything. Collectors believe that during Denver's minting process, a small batch of coins was struck using experimental planchets, test pieces that should never have been released into circulation. Others whisper about doubled dies, off-center strikes, or improperly mixed metals. And while the mint has always remained silent, a handful of these error coins slipped into the hands of the public. One of them would end up on the auction block. When it first appeared, most people didn't take notice. It was just a penny, after all. But sharp-eyed collectors saw the telltale signs. The shine was different. The weight was slightly off. The lettering wasn't quite right. And when the hammer fell at a major auction, the room gasped. That penny sold for hundreds of thousands, but the story didn't end there. Years later, another specimen surfaced, this one in near pristine condition, saved unknowingly in a simple coin jar for decades. The owner had no idea what they were holding. To them, it was just a penny from the 70s. But when dealers examined it, the truth came out. It wasn't just rare. It was unique. The bidding war was fierce. Collectors from around the world fought to own this mysterious error penny. The final price? Over $1.2 million. The answer is hidden in the details. On some specimens, the D mint mark, standing for Denver, appears slightly misplaced, punched by hand in a way that no machine could replicate. On others, the date shows doubling, a faint shadow of numbers caused by a misaligned die. And perhaps most shocking of all, some of these coins were struck on planchets that don't belong to the penny at all, thinner, lighter, or made of experimental metals that never should have been used. And here's the twist: most people wouldn't even notice. They'd spend it, drop it, or toss it in a jar, but to the trained eye, these flaws are the gateway to fortune. Collectors were stunned when the first $1 million sale was announced. Dealers rushed to recheck their inventory. Suddenly, every 1973 penny in America was worth a second look. Coin shops were flooded with people holding up old change, asking, could this be the one? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another coin surfaced, this one pulled from circulation decades after it was minted. The man who found it? An ordinary worker who had been collecting pennies on the side, never expecting a miracle. He thought maybe, just maybe, his penny was worth a few bucks. Instead, it shook the auction block and added another chapter to the legend of the 1973 D. And that's the magic of these coins. It's not just about copper or mint marks. It's about possibility. The chance that in your pocket, in your desk drawer, or hidden in an old coffee can, you might be holding $1 million miracle. But here's where most people go wrong. They grab any old 1973 D penny and assume it's valuable. That's not the case. Out of the hundreds of millions minted, only a tiny fraction hold the secret. First, check the mint mark. Look closely at the D. If it seems doubled, misplaced, or unusually sharp, you may have something special. Second, weigh the coin. Standard 1973 pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams. If yours feels light, closer to 2.5 grams, it may have been struck on the wrong planchet. Third, study the date and lettering. Any sign of doubling, shadowing, or distortion could be a valuable error. Condition matters. The closer your coin is to uncirculated, bright, shiny, with little to no wear, the higher the value climbs. Some collectors believe there are still undiscovered 1973 D error pennies out there, hiding in piggy banks, sitting in old rolls, waiting to be found by someone who takes the time to look. Imagine being that person. Imagine flipping through a handful of coins, spotting a tiny flaw, and realizing you're holding more than just a penny. You're holding a fortune. This is why collectors call it the dream of a lifetime. Because for every person who found one of these rare treasures, their story became legend. And for every person still searching, the hope is alive. The 1973 D Lincoln Memorial penny is more than a coin. It's proof that miracles can be small, copper-colored, and hiding in plain sight. So the next time you see a penny from 1973 with a little D under the date, don't ignore it. Hold it up to the light. Check the details. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin was almost forgotten. It slipped through the hands of thousands, spent in grocery stores, passed across counters, and shoved into piggy banks. But when it finally resurfaced, it shocked the entire collecting world. Because this ordinary-looking penny, a 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny, has been valued at up to $1.3 million. Imagine that for a moment. A penny, something you might overlook, something you might toss aside, suddenly becoming worth more than most people's homes. One man once found this coin mixed in with pocket change, the kind of discovery that seemed impossible until it happened. And what he uncovered made him realize he was holding a life-changing treasure in the palm of his hand. What makes this penny so rare, so elusive, that collectors will pay millions to own one? The truth lies in a mistake. A minting error so shocking, so unlikely, that only a tiny handful of these coins exist today. And unless you know what to look for, you might pass it by without ever realizing its true value. Back in 1943, the United States Mint switched from copper to steel to conserve precious metals during World War II. Pennies that year were made of zinc-coated steel, giving them a shiny, silvery look. But in 1944, the mint switched back to copper. Here's where the mystery begins. Somehow, a few leftover steel planchets, the blanks used to strike coins, were fed into the presses in 1944. They were struck with the Lincoln wheat penny design and released into circulation. What came out was a coin that should not exist. Collectors call them off-metal errors, but in reality, they're miracles of chance. And when one appears at auction, bidding wars erupt. In 2018, a 1944 steel wheat penny without a mint mark sold for over $1 million. The coin world was stunned, because even seasoned dealers had rarely seen one in such pristine condition. But here's the twist that few people realize: not all 1944 no-mint mark pennies are valuable. Millions were struck in copper that year, and those are common. You could have jars filled with them and they'd be worth only a few cents each. The difference lies in one critical detail. If your 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, you may have just found one of the rarest coins in American history. That tiny test separates the ordinary from the million-dollar miracle, but the story doesn't end there. Because while the Philadelphia Mint produced the most famous no-mint mark 1944 steel pennies, whispers in the collecting world suggest that even rarer varieties exist, coins struck on transitional blanks, coins with ghostly errors in the lettering, coins that defy logic and explanation. Each time one surfaces, the coin market holds its breath. A small-town collector brings a box of coins to a local show, not expecting much. A dealer casually flips through the pennies until his hand freezes. His eyes widen. His breath shortens. He realizes he's holding a 1944 no-mint mark steel penny in nearly perfect condition. The whispers spread, the room grows tense, and suddenly the coin that almost ended up in a junk jar is surrounded by eager buyers waving offers in the hundreds of thousands. But what happens next stuns everyone. The bidding climbs higher and higher until it passes the million-dollar mark. A penny, worth more than a luxury car, more than a year's salary, more than most people could dream of holding in cash. Collectors say moments like these are like lightning strikes. They're rare, they're unforgettable, and they remind everyone why they search. You don't have to be a millionaire to find one. Anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon this coin in an old drawer, a box of inherited change, or even tucked away in a forgotten piggy bank. Stories surface every year of ordinary people discovering extraordinary coins. And every time, the world is reminded, history hides in plain sight, but here's where you must be careful. Scammers and fakes flood the market. Some take regular 1944 copper pennies, plate them in silver, and try to pass them off as steel errors. Others tamper with dates, hoping to fool buyers. If you think you found the real thing, always test it with a magnet. The genuine 1944 steel wheat penny is magnetic, unmistakable. Then, have it authenticated by a trusted grading service, because only certified examples can command those jaw-dropping auction prices. Collectors were stunned when one man, a retired worker, found a 1944 steel penny in his late father's belongings. For decades, it sat untouched in a tin. When he finally had it appraised, it was valued at over $1 million. He was holding a piece of history, a coin born of wartime shortages, a mistake that became a miracle. And his life changed forever. But imagine how many more are still out there, waiting. Lying hidden in jars of pennies, hiding among the copper of 1944, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough, curious enough, lucky enough, to recognize it. Dealers say most people who own one don't even realize it. And that's why stories like this captivate us, because the next discovery could belong to you. Think about it. A single coin, small enough to slip into your pocket unnoticed, yet powerful enough to rewrite your future. The kind of treasure that turns skeptics into believers, and ordinary collectors into legends. This is not just about money, it's about history, chance, and the thrill of finding something so rare, so extraordinary, that it defies the odds. So, how do you know if your 1944 penny is the one? Start with the basics. Look at the date, 1944, no mint mark. That means it came from Philadelphia. Then, test it with a magnet. If it sticks, your heart might just skip a beat, because you could be holding the $1 million miracle. If it doesn't stick, it's ordinary copper. Valuable, yes, but not life-changing. Condition matters. A worn example may bring tens of thousands, but one in pristine mint state, that's where the $1 million bidding wars erupt. Even a tiny scratch can mean the difference between a nice profit and a fortune. That's why grading services like PCGS and NGC are trusted by collectors worldwide. They certify, they protect, and they reveal just how high your coin could soar in value. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny is more than just a coin. It's a survivor of history, a fluke of the minting process, and a symbol of the treasures still waiting to be found. And the truth is, it could be anywhere. In a box of change from your grandparents. In a roll of pennies from the bank. In the forgotten depths of your own drawer. Don't dismiss the pennies in your possession. Look closely, test carefully, and never underestimate the power of one small coin. Because this exact penny, this unassuming piece of metal, has changed lives before, and it could change yours.